Here in Europe, the idea of using space-based weapons to defend the Earth seems about as real as this movie. Star Wars is not merely a catchy name for the American Strategic Defense Initiative. It's a description which implies strong skepticism. In the television animations which we use to explain the concepts which are under consideration, the lasers and particle beams never miss. Viewers may thus be conditioned into thinking that such weapons must inevitably work. However, here at the Royal Greenwich Observatory, you encounter the first point of European opposition to Star Wars, its feasibility. At this observatory, they do know something about lasers and are using them to measure changes in the Earth's orbit by hitting certain satellites with laser beams.
We are sending a laser beam towards the satellite and detecting light reflected from the satellite back towards the ground.
Hitting a satellite with a laser is one of the simpler tasks required to make Star Wars work. And these are known satellites, not enemy missiles taking evasive actions.
Occasionally we have difficulty in hitting the satellites that we're dealing with now. And those satellites are ones that have been put up to be extremely predictable.
So, does a scientist who is currently hitting satellites with lasers think Star Wars is feasible?
To devise a system that could do that and could do it with certainty at any time is going to require a very large proportion of the gross national product of any large country. I find it extremely difficult to believe that this sort of thing can be done at all.
But even if space weapons do turn out to be feasible, most current European governments still have serious doubts about them, especially if they make possible President Reagan's dream of ridding the world of nuclear weapons. On the 40th anniversary of the end of World War II, Europe knows only too well the effects of conventional warfare.
We've enjoyed 40 years of peace. Rather than die by the nuclear sword, we have lived by the shield of deterrence.
For the next, I think, 2 decades at least, we have to live with nuclear weapons.
This is why the Europeans love the bomb. Warsaw Pact forces outnumber NATO forces in every conventional category of men and equipment. If NATO could not resort to nuclear weapons, the Soviets could easily overrun Western Europe. Last week, European ministers did endorse research on space weapons, but most still fear that deployment of weapons in space could wreck any chances for arms control and speed up the arms race.
There is perhaps a certain risk that, as with earlier weapons, it will lead us to a new escalation of the arms race. But at what price?
Even Prime Minister Thatcher has serious doubts. British and American sources have told ABC News that in her last meeting with President Reagan, she heaped scorn on the whole idea of space weapons. Later, her foreign secretary made what has come to be seen as the definitive European anti-Star Wars speech.
There'd be no advantage in creating a new Maginot Line of the 21st century, liable to be outflanked by relatively simpler and demonstrably cheaper countermeasures.
Star Wars weapons are still many years away, but Allied resistance is already being felt. The subject will be discussed here in Bonn, but the U.S. had to scrap plans to have this week's economic summit endorse the research program when it became clear that even that would cause a major row. Barrie Dunsmore, ABC News, Bonn.